Oh, you're living in Boston, and why did you pick New Hampshire for Camp Constitution?
Well, it's the venue, the camp, the weekly camp. I've used this camp in the past, and so that's where it's going to be this year.
So what's the camp like? Because I want to send someone there. I was going to make an announcement to you today. I have when I ran for mayor of New London, I didn't fundraise for the most part, but I had about $500 people gave me because I wasn't planning on getting elected. I ran as an independent for my little city that I lived in since I was born, and I have like $500. So I know your camp costs $325.
$350 for a week, the whole week.
$350 for a week, and during that week, tell me what if I send someone Camp Constitution, what are they going to experience?
Well, I would say a potential life-changing experience, definitely life-affirming experience. And I think that's why we attract people as far as Michigan. They're driving, because something's really important happening there. Well, it's a week and a day long camp. And in addition to the great instructions they get, the great classes, they have a time to fellowship with like-minded people, which is kind of difficult. Parents can bring their children knowing that they're going to be in a nice environment, that these are the kinds of people you want your children to become friendly with, to befriend, and you can make lifetime friends there. My whole family participates, and my children, now some of them are counselors because they're no longer campers age, they're now counselors, and they look forward to it. My 12-year-old, she counts the days. She'll watch in the middle of the wintertime, she'll watch some of the videos we made at camp, or some of the pictures, the pictures on disc, and really enjoy it. And she has friends from New York City, she's got friends in Rhode Island, she's got friends pretty much all over the region as a result of the people she met there. So I can give you a typical day at camp to give up. We have a 6:30 optional wake up where we go on a run or a swim. It's an optional thing. And of course the gifted athletes and swimmers all get up early to do that. After the third or fourth day, some of the runners get a little, they sleep.
When do the artists get out of bed?
They get they have to be out at 7. There's, the gifted people, the intellectuals, they have to get up at 7. The nerds, right? 10 minutes of 8, we have morning devotions at the flagpole, scripture reading, and the camp is a non-denominational. I would say it's a Christ-centered camp,
but it's a Christian camp.
But it's not a Bible camp, But we've had people say that they get more out of a week at our camp than they do at some Bible camp. I can't say that. I'm just saying what some parents have told us. Then we have breakfast, and there's 3 classes in the morning. And some of the instructors we have are somewhat well known. Some of them are in-house. Earl Wallace happens to be one of our instructors.
I love.
You got a dose of Earl. And the gentleman, my bodyguard here, Dr. Kishore, he came down with me in a few minutes' notice. He's one of the instructors. Larry Pratt of Gun Owners of America will be there for a day or 2. He's flying in.
That's wonderful.
Yeah. Larry's a great guy. Alex Newman, I don't know if you know Alex. Alex writes for WorldNet Daily and the New American. He is a top expert on Common Core and many other topics, and he'll be there. He's actually flying in from Florida for a day and going home, he'd be there less than. And Chris Ann Hall would be there. You know who she is. She's a wonderful constitutional attorney who you used to have on your show sometime. She had to cancel. She got health reasons, but she's been an instructor for the last 3 years. Then we have Professor Willie Soon, who was one of the top climate realists in the world. Willie Soon was the man who exposed the hockey stick graph, if you're familiar with that, and familiar with that issue. And he's out of the Harvard Smithsonian, and his whole family's coming as well.
That's interesting.
Yeah, and then we have Earl Wallace, Reverend Stevie Kraft is one of our instructors.
You have to have some of them on the show before. Now, when is Camp Constitution this year?
July 2nd to the 9th.
So you still have openings?
Oh, yeah, absolutely, yeah.
Okay. What do you think would happen if I decided, do you think, you're talking about like minds. I'm interested in introducing the Constitution to groups of people that really do not understand what the Constitution says and what it means.
We do have a speakers bureau, so we're really expanding.
Well, no, I'd like to send people to your camp. Do you think someone who has, let's say, an inner city person that has never been exposed to what do you think they'll enjoy it?
Oh, I think absolutely, yeah.
So shouldn't we be trying to get as many kids in as possible that have not been exposed? Because they haven't learned. Talk about Common Core. They have not learned what they're being taught is that our Constitution is written by a bunch of old white men that are slave owners.
Eurocentric
Yeah.
males. And one of the things too is refuting some of the cliches about first that, well, it's so old, it can't be valid.
Yeah.
Well, if it deals with human nature, and human nature doesn't change much, if we
At all,
have any
obviously.
credibility in King Solomon, and nothing new under the sun. But one of the points is the 3/5 compromise. You know, where in Article 1 it said that for the purpose of counting apportionment, you know, the census, they said, okay, we'll count 5 slaves, 5
For every one.
for every 3.
Oh, for every 3.
So they'll
Okay.
say, well, gee, does that mean that the value of the black is not as well? What happened was, states at that point, you only had a couple of states that weren't slave states. Connecticut was a slave state, by the way, until the 1840s. But it was a very small slave population, so it wasn't big. But South
How many
Carolina,
slaves do you think there were in Connecticut total?
by the time of the Revolution, I don't know. I mean, if I went on my phone,
A few
I'd
hundred,
give
do you think?
It was probably a few hundred, maybe a few thousand.
I think one thing that people don't understand, that, you know, I wouldn't mind, this conversation's gonna go all over the place, I can just tell. We didn't prepare for this, honest.
Well,
it's gonna go
but you brought
everywhere
up a
now.
great question about, you know, what people in the inner city or
Yeah.
liberals, a lot of people who
Liberals,
don't.
Progressives.
You know, I remember my 8th grade history teacher, Mrs. Wolf. I had a great love of history, but she said, and she was mistaken, that the Constitution upheld slavery. So getting back to the 3/5, so the states were very small. No, Massachusetts was a free state at that point. It was the first
That's where
one.
my
And
family
Pennsylvania,
came from, yep.
Pennsylvania was a few years later. So, and not only that, but within a short time, many states did away with slavery. Gradual.
To
but
put it in perspective, there were not a lot of slaves
no,
during the course of our early history. Even if you compared it to today's proportion, it's minute compared to the number of slaves that exist today.
so what was happening is that the more members of Congress, the more influence that state would have. So if Virginia had, let's say they had 200,000 slaves, that meant they might have a couple of, maybe another state rep, I mean another member of Congress, that he won't be representing the interests of the slaves. He'll be interested in the slaveholders for the most
Absolutely,
part.
yeah.
So they figured, so they made a compromise. They said, you don't count them as citizens. Why count them you're not representing their interests, you see, necessarily. So it really wasn't. It was just the opposite. But in fact, Frederick Douglass, he read the Constitution. He was an escaped slave, you know, and he read the Constitution.
Brilliant, educated
And he
man.
said, this is not a slave document. It's a free document.
Well, why can't we get that across? How
we
do
do.
we do this? Well, you're doing it, but the mainstream media and the education, mainstream education system in our country is saying the opposite. They're teaching. I'm hearing from the inner city.
Oh, I know.
Being a Trump supporter and just having this Trump rally, which you were gracious enough to send Reverend Wallace down, I'm getting a backlash, basically attacking whites. And saying basically that, you know, we're racist because we believe in liberty and the Constitution. We're horrible people.
Well, the first thing is there are some people you cannot win over, period. They just most of these are paid. The people that protested
No,
your
they've
event.
sent in 200
These
Planned
people are
Parenthood
they're
protesters.
probably being paid. Nothing you can say. I was at a Sanctuary City rally, and outside of this was a Boston, not a rally, but a forum indoors, and there were some people from the Progressive Labor Party outside chanting, and you're not going to change those people. They're hardcore, but there are a lot of people who just haven't been informed about this. And I think with a little bit of understanding, their minds will change pretty quickly. We had one young man who came to the camp, and I don't think he was getting this back. I don't think he was getting what we were giving him at home, and definitely went to a public school, you know. But he sat through a class, and he said, well, we're not indoctrinating, we're giving well-reasoned. We say, look, don't trust us, do your own research. But you probably never heard this perspective before, you know. And
They're not
change.
teaching it in the schools.
A
I'm
big
telling you.
change. But I tell you, one of the good things about the schools not teaching it is that you get a clean slate.
No,
You know?
they're teaching the opposite. For example, let's take New London, and we have a beautiful, we had a beautiful Italian ghetto where my family came from, Fort Trumbull, and that was torn down.
Oh, I know that,
okay?
yeah. I was telling the doc about what happened there.
It's
yeah.
horrible what
Eminent
happened there.
domain, yeah.
It's
I knew
horrible.
Susan Kilo too, by the way.
Yeah. So the little pink house that they moved, actually, it was saved and preserved on Federal Street, I believe, in New London. Anyway, so they tear down this ghetto, which was such an incubator for greatness and the American dream. in New London, and some of New London was really built in the turn of the century by Italians. For example, we have Lawrence Memorial Hospital. Well, Lawrence, his actual name was Lorenzo.
Lorenzo, yeah.
Right. Yeah. So, but what has happened is we had a progressive mayor with Justin Finizio, Gerald Justin Finizio, and he got rid of Columbus Day. He turned it into Indigenous People Day. We are seeing our history being dismantled by cultural Marxists.
That's right.
Across the country. And it's very serious. This is
Oh,
not...
believe me, I know it is.
It is very serious. So your message has got to grow.
We have to grow. And you know what, this is what we hear from a lot of people. I've been hearing this for years too. The young people aren't getting this. And what do we do about it? Well, we're doing something about it, and we're just one relatively small entity. We want to expand our program and our outreach. So right now we're sort of regional. We might go as far as Pennsylvania and New England and New York, but we have to break out of that. And the best way is to just get on shows like yours, and we need financial help, just like we all do. You know?
And but people could send. For example, let me propose something. Okay. I'd
do a
love
remote, by the way, if you can. Bring the studio up. We'll do a remote at the camp.
Oh, that would be.
Yeah.
Well, maybe I can talk to my husband about it. We'll see. We have my daughter's graduating, and we have a lot going on in the next couple of weeks. And then a friend of ours has 3 kids, or 2 kids getting married. I think I've never been invited to so many weddings in my life. Well, just family.
Bring them up there, get married there during the camp.
There you go. So tell me about the camp. Does it have so you have swimming, you have a lake?
Yes. Well,
where do people sleep?
This year we're using the Towanipi Christian Retreat Center in Ridge, New Hampshire. This is where all of our camps have been since '09. Next year's camp we've got another venue, but we haven't signed the contract yet. But it's a lovely location. They've got a lake there, so there's swimming and there's canoeing and there's fishing. We have cabins, very comfortable, and we have lodges. So you're in the woods, but it's pretty comfortable. I mean, one of the lodges is air conditioning.
Yeah.
And one of the new buildings, my problem was I had remote air conditioning. I came not really used to that, and I had to turn it down because it was too cold.
So you're keeping the squirrels and the bears out, but you're still
for the most part, yeah.
Nature.
But you're in the woods, but you're not. But some people, we have one group, a family from Connecticut actually bringing tents. You know, you're going to bring a family of 8 to sleep. So you can bring a trailer too if you want, although there's only limited space for that. So if you do decide, let us know soon, because I think we only have 1 or 2 openings left for that.
Well, yeah, I got to tell you a story with Earl Wallace. I mean, I adore him. I have to tell you. I just thank you so much.
We're pretty fond of Earl too.
Yeah, he is really a terrific guy. And he came down, and I ended up spending the day in court, which I'm very glad I did that. And Earl took over my rally. And thank God.
We're leaders, you know. That's what we do. You know? We won't muscle our way in, but if you need a leadership for hire, right?
Well, and I also had Colonel Armin Bierman, who has served our country greatly in Iraq, and he actually is the person who took Saddam Hussein out of the gutter, sort of the hole he was in, and interrogated him for 30 days. And he's a wonderful man, and he's a Christian. He was born in Egypt. We had a very diverse, extremely diverse group of people. And it was interesting because we're being called racist, because because we're conservative, we're racist, we're all these bad, horrible things, terrible things, and meanwhile it could be nothing further from the truth. But Colonel Bierman said to me, he was standing beside Earl, and they decided to say the Lord's Prayer. Mm-hmm. And as soon as they said the Lord's Prayer, all the protesters quieted down.
That's interesting. Yeah.
And he that was his perspective. And he said, Lori, that meant more to me than I can tell you. I was so happy. And I was freaked out because I couldn't plan the speakers. I couldn't plan the event. I was getting blocked by the city of New London illegally. And it worked out for the best in terms of I was apologizing that it wasn't a well-organized, perfect speech situation. And he said, I had a blast. He grabbed someone's sign, and it was just grassroots, real love for America, love for our freedoms, and understanding of what our unalienable rights are. And I would like you right now to tell everyone, and when I ask the question, where do you get your liberty from? I get a blank stare by these young people today. Where do we as Americans get our liberty from?
Well, we can find the answer in the Declaration of Independence, from God.
From God.
From our Creator, which is something you can't teach in a government-controlled school today. Right?
What they want the Constitution destroyed
And the Declaration of Independence.
and the Declaration of Independence because of God.
And they replace it, the Communist Manifesto is the most well-read document in colleges today. Everybody should read that. In fact, over the years, we've had classes on the Communist Manifesto. This is what the enemy says. Karl Marx was a Eurocentric male too, by the way. You know, he was from that same culture. And I debate liberals on occasion. Oh, anything that 200 years old is obsolete. I says, what about something that's 150 years old? Well, that's obsolete too. Thank you. You just said the Communist Manifesto is obsolete. But there are 10 planks of the manifesto. And Marx said basically, by the way, they were going to call it the Socialist Manifesto. But at the time, in the 1840s, there were a lot of people out there that they didn't like, that were calling themselves... Yeah, they were calling themselves socialists. So they didn't want, so they thought communism had a better name. Anyway, the 10 planks of the manifesto, a complete control of education, an income tax, control of all means of production, no private property. Plank 2 is progressive income tax. Gee, we don't have that, do we, in this country, right? Well, it became accepted in 19 when they passed the 16th Amendment. So we have that. We have, they talked about the centralization of credit in the hands of the state. We have something like that called the Federal Reserve Bank. It is a private entity, but it's sort of a cartel between government and, so it's not exactly, then they talk about industrial armies. That's what Obama was pushing, right? He was talking about having a force that's as powerful as the military, a civilian force, you see. And so most of the inheritance tax.
That force, by the way, he was in the process of inviting the United Nations to police our cities, and he was also militarizing our police.
That's right. That's something that was going on before Obama, by the way, long before that. But it was really ratcheted up, you know, put in overdrive, ratcheting up, put it on steroids. It used to be, you know, police protect and serve. The purpose of this is protect the property, uphold the law. And now you go to a police station and there's always bulletproof glass. I visit police stations all over. I'm always popping and leaving information. And you'll see bulletproof glass. It could be a small little police station. I was up in Madawaska, Maine, was the one place that I didn't see the barriers. And that's a psychological barrier when you see that bulletproof glass. I mean, you're a little town that hasn't been a murder in 100 years. Someone's paying for that. You see, the federal government puts money in it. And they'll buy them these armored vehicles and such, and those are expensive to maintain. So, and they'll say, well, tell you what, we'll give you money to the police department for your patrolman, but we have to take this other stuff.
But also,
and we'll train you.
In the state of Connecticut, this is what I have a real problem for. I mean, the Second Amendment says that we have the right to protect ourselves from our government, basically.
Well, you should also look at your state constitution.
Our state constitution is shredded.
But
it is destroyed.
But it's still there. Massachusetts, which is the oldest.
The judges don't believe in it.
Well, I understand that, but it's there. It hasn't been officially repealed.
It has to be, you know, I'm glad you brought that up. Connecticut's constitution is even more solidly pro-gun and also pro-free speech than our federal U.S. Constitution.
But let me talk about this. See, a lot of people will say, well, the Second Amendment, the people on the left, the Second Amendment talks about a militia, and it's the National Guard today. The Second Amendment didn't give us that right. We had that right. If there was no Bill of Rights, you had the right to keep and bear arms.
Right.
That simply said that Congress's job was to make sure the states had a working militia. They completely changed the definition in 1903, and we have something. The National Guard is not a militia, although legally it's considered. If you look at their law, but it's bad law. You know, it was unconstitutional law. An unorganized militia, there's no such thing.
No.
I mean, people bought that too. And way back in 1903, unorganized militia, all able-bodied males between 16 and 65 or 45. Well, what happens if there's a catastrophe in Ledyard? Well, gee, the guy down the street used to shoot squirrels when he was a kid. The guy over here has a BB gun. That's not an unorganized, that's not a militia. You're useless. You're useless. Militia means you're trained, you're disciplined. You call out, and there's order, there's people, there's a rank structure that you know what to do, whether it's shooting at bad guys or it's dealing with floods or, you know, coastal towns or riots and such. So you're not trained if you're unorganized. But people bought that because, you know, hey, Canada's not going to invade us. Europe's it's a big ocean, so we had nothing to worry about. That was the thinking.
Yeah. Well, I just find the Connecticut Constitution to be very interesting to me personally right now, so.
Well, you're known as the Constitution State.
Well, we're gonna be the first
Wh-
communist
what
state.
happened,
Well,
you know?
it's the first communist state. We have Governor Malloy standing on the banks of the Connecticut River during Earth Day, claiming his allegiance to the United Nations
Yeah,
climate change agenda,
Yeah.
and saying that, you know, we're gonna buy into a green bank. We're gonna tax carbon. We're gonna decide who lives where with social engineering of our,
That's right.
our
Agenda
communities. Agenda 21, Agenda 2030, you know, completely. And that is communism, global
that's
communism. Would
exactly
you
right.
agree?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. But it's done with a smile. It's not done with a concentration camp and you know, being shot in the back of the head.
But it's also done with normalcy bias, where people think that this is just normal
Well,
and
the
everything's
consensus.
okay.
Well, it was
Consensus.
interesting. There's a little. One of our instructors, Reverend Stevie Kraft, he happens to be a black gentleman, and he gave me a DVD. It was a Tea Party, a black Tea Party leader from Colorado. And he's suggesting that, he said, why aren't there more black people at these Tea Party rallies? Liberty is a very important thing for all people.
Right.
And he said a lot of times there's a disconnect, you know. So, and I live not too far from the inner city of Boston. I've been making outreaches, and there's a
We have to. We have to reach
Pastor
out.
Bruce Wall is in Boston, and we're Facebook friends. There's a parking lot issue in his little section.
I'm not
of
gonna let you,
Dorchester.
I gotta,
Oh.
we gotta tell this story when we get back from
Oh,
the break.
absolutely, yeah,
Okay, yeah, because I think the inner city is extraordinarily important. So, you're listening to Lori on Liberty. I'm Lori Hopkins-Cavanagh, here today with Hal Shurtleff on the radio, with Camp Constitution, who you started that yourself, correct?
Well, I'm the co-founder. Yeah,
The co-founder.
three of us, yeah.
And this is a wonderful opportunity to expand this group. I'm hoping that maybe you'll help me do that in the future. And we have 1 minute left, and I just want to let you know that I love to receive your emails, your Facebook messages. I'm Lori Hopkins-Cavanagh on Facebook, and follow me on Twitter at Lori on Liberty, and Gmail is lorionnliberty@gmail.com. If you write to me, for example, like John Dummermuth wrote to me, or I think he Facebooked me, this wonderful introduction to the show today about what Memorial Day is all about, so that's why I read it. So if you have something important to share, I'm happy to share it with you. And if you have an important event in your, share it for you on the radio. If you have an important event in your life, for example, if perhaps your grandmother is turning 103 years old, something like that, happy to share that. Shout out a happy birthday to your grandmother, etc. Just, you have to email me, lorionnliberty@gmail.com. That's lorionnliberty@gmail.com. Only here on 94.9 News Now and Stimulating Talk, WJJF. We'll be right back. Okay. Staying with us today on Memorial Day, this wonderful weekend that we have to pay our respect for those who have fallen, our brave men and women that have served our country so bravely, and their families who have lost their cherished loved ones. And I think that's so important to keep in mind. And I want to do that repeatedly on the show because I am indebted to them. I didn't serve myself personally. I've tried to serve through political means and by this radio show to protect what they fought for. And so that's what Lori on Liberty is all about. They fought for liberty. I'm fighting for liberty today. And we have another person joining us. Would you do the introduction?
Yes, my good friend, I don't really call him a colleague, but I guess we're colleagues, Dr. Punamatula Kishore, he's actually from India, as you can probably tell.
Mm-hmm.
And he is a very patriotic person. He loves our country. And he's one of our instructors. But I met him a few years ago, maybe 3 years ago. I was showing a video by Dinesh D'Souza.
Yeah.
And he came to the showing. And D'Souza talked about his legal troubles of some minor,
He was thrown in jail.
and he said, "Oh, you should hear my issue." So we got to know each other very well. And Doc used to have 52 clinics. He created a model to treat addiction without using methadone and Suboxone.
Wow.
And the Bain Corporation, this is a short version, the Bain Corporation offered him $60 million to sell. They weren't interested in the furniture and the buildings. They were interested in the model to get, in my opinion, to get it out because you're not making any money off addicts if you're treating them with just non-addictive medicines. Because once you get them off the stuff, they're off it. And he had about a 58% success rate by the time they shut down his last clinic. And after a 4-year ordeal, he pled out, spent some time in jail. But right now there's a documentary, it's in post-production. It's called Hero In, but it looks like Heroin America. And if you go to the website, Heroin America, or Heroin America, you can see some of the early, some of the pre-release things.
So Doc, what happened? They wanted to buy you out, you said no?
I said no, and next thing you know, the knives came out, and over a period of the next year, varieties of accusations were made, and then the different mechanisms came into action.
The medical mafia. This is what he's learned about since
I was an innocent guy thinking that getting people off of drugs and restoring them back to their life, not rehabbing them, but restoring them back to their full life is the key to the problem of addiction in the country. And I was wildly successful. I was taking care of them in their own homes, and we were doing a program called sobriety maintenance. We were enhancing the sobriety experience with connecting with the churches. People loved it. I had 250,000 patients, not 1, 2, 3, 4. We had 29 doctors, 44 nurse practitioners, staff of 370. We had a fascinating practice, fascinating. It was written up in the National Institute of Drug Abuse as the Massachusetts model, primary care-based addiction care, lifelong care, so that people, if they slip or slide, catch them early.
Yeah, you have to continue it. Yeah.
Because this is a lifelong illness.
Right.
If you call it an illness, I don't call it an illness, but I have to go with it because that's the only way to get into the medical treatment.
Right.
It's a complex area of medicine. Not too many doctors want to get into addiction medicine. In this country, we have 1.2 million doctors. In my society, American Society of Addiction Medicine, we have 1,200 doctors.
Oh my God.
So there's a very few number.
And look at the surge in heroin overdoses and
All over the
fentanyl
country.
deaths all over the country. In my city of New London and
Right.
all the inner cities, the death is tragic, horrible. Yet it is a complex. So they went after you. You were successful in treating these people,
That's right.
and they decided to shut you down because they couldn't buy you out.
No, the Bain Capital and some of the other companies are consolidating the methadone industry. Right
Oh
now,
my God.
they buy it for $37 million. On the Wall Street, they sell it for $1.5 billion. It's become corporatized, commoditized. The human beings who are in the methadone clinics
I did not know that.
have become a human commodity.
Commodity, yeah.
This is a hedge fund, Bain
A hedge
Capital,
fund.
yeah, which Romney was
That's right.
at one time part of Bain Capital.
Yes.
So these hedge funds, they have a pretty dark side to them, from what I understand, in a lot of different areas. So now you're showing me one in the medical industry.
That's right. They sold it to Goldman Sachs, and Goldman Sachs, of course, sells the shares in it to different people.
And if you know about Agenda 21, you know Goldman Sachs is up to its eyeball on that issue too. You know, through that they were going to sell the carbon credits.
And it's not like, a disease like measles or mumps where unfortunately the bug gets into the body and we get sick and we get better, or we get unhealthy and die. But addiction is a man-made disease. It's been artificial epidemic. It's not a real epidemic in the real sense of the word.
I'm not going to catch it if I go outside and breathe
Right,
something.
it's not a disease
Right,
like that,
right.
but it's a mental and social, and there's a variety of different causes.
Right, once it gets into the body, whatever way, whether it be accidental, intentional, recreational route, or by doctors giving it iatrogenic route, there are many paths to addiction. But once it gets into the body, they all do the same thing. They chase the drug, they have to seek it, they get the cravings. So they got a sense of loss of control. They lose control. And it happens to anybody, whatever route you get in. In olden days, we used to say many roads lead to Rome, but once you're in Rome, you put the togas on and you walk with leaves on the head. Same
Okay, let's get back to what
Yeah.
happened though. So they put you out of business somehow. How did that happen?
Right. When people get sober, they have to live in sober living. And I set up my own housing called Families of Choice, because a lot of them have lost their families.
Right, sure.
So I had a den
Yeah.
mother, den father, we were taking care of them in my own homes. I bought a bunch of real estate worth $7.7 million. I was housing the recovering young people. Most of my practice is young adults. And we had a den mother and den father to take care of them. And basically we were cutting into the profits for other sober living communities where They collect the urine samples, and the urine samples are worth their weight in gold. Each urine sample they collect can net them $5,000 per sample. Because I was doing it outside of the commercial labs. I had my own labs.
Mm-hmm.
So they accused me of what they call a kickback scheme to get the urine sample. But I'm billing just the normal rate for a doctor's office.
Are you saying they were billing these other
Commercial
rehab
labs, yeah,
locations are billing up to $5,000 per urine sample?
that's right. That's right.
That's incredible.
That's right, because
Now, why is the insurance company paying that?
well,
Because the government's paying? Who's paying for that?
it is the government is paying for that. The way they do it is they take a sample in a sober house, saying because you got to be sober to live in a sober house. Then they send it to a commercial lab. The commercial lab does a panel of 25, 30, or 40 drugs, and each line they pay $15 to $20, $25 depending on the insurance company. So they get a chunk of money there. But a lot of these tests will be positive or false negative. There could be, when you do a test, it could be a false negative or a false positive, or a true negative or a true positive. So now to check these, they send them to another lab in another state, and they check whether it's a true positive or a false positive, true negative or a false negative. That test costs about $250 per line.
Wow.
So those costs escalate. And then once you get the reports back, then you have to test it again to make sure you haven't made a mistake, what they call a confirmatory sample. All of this adds up to a bundle of money for the commercial labs. And unfortunately, many of these are owned by local politicians in Massachusetts.
Oh my gosh.
And they didn't like the fact that I was doing it in my own office, in my own laboratory machines. For the physician's office lab, which is what mine is, the payments are low, but I get the confirmation same day. And I have doctors who
Sure,
can
it happens all the time, yeah.
interpret the testing, so we can make quality choices in a pretty quick way.
So how are they saying you were getting a kickback?
Well, the reason is some of the places were not mine. Some of them were housing complexes where people are living. I didn't want them to come to my office, so I went to them. So I took a room this size, I set up my office, and I paid a rent of a few $100 to $1,000 for the space, which is called co-location under the Obamacare rules. Because if you go to a gas station, you might say a Dunkin' Donuts shop.
Right, yeah.
They co-locate. And we read the rules, we had lawyers who tested it and verified it, and then we took co-location, a room to do our medical services once or twice a week, because they're sober, they're well people but not completely well. So we went in there to see them rather than contaminate them in my practices and make it hard for them. They're all working houses. So that they called a kickback, the room that I took.
That's ridiculous.
By the way, he gave a presentation at last year's camp. It's on YouTube. We have a YouTube channel, Camp Constitution. I think we call it The State versus Kishore. Went into a lot of details. And the documentary should be released this fall, right?
Right.
And I think we're going to get a little credit.
So they
for
put
it.
you out, now you have legal, you have to get a law firm to represent you, and the legal fees must be enormous.
Enormous.
And you settled. Why did you settle instead of, did you run out of money?
Run out of money.
Yeah, that's what happens. The legal system is so rigged against
Not
people.
only that, but they also threatened to his wife and daughters were, you'll never see him again, he'll be in jail, and they just scared the daylights out of him.
I'm so sorry that happened to you.
But I
So
think,
when did you come to the United States?
I came here in 1977. I worked at a place called the Washingtonian Hospital in Jamaica Plain, close to where...
which is in Boston, a neighborhood in Boston.
And that was founded actually by Martha Washington way back when,
Oh, wow.
1800s.
Yep.
In those days, she was the Betty Ford of that era. She took on the cause of addiction in the colonies. And she,
Oh, I didn't know that.
yeah.
She and Benjamin Rush were involved in the creation of these.
So now you're a doctor,
Yeah.
and what about the Constitution means so much to you that you have become so involved in this effort?
Well, I must tell you, Hal has been a good mentor for me. He knows history like the back of his hand. If I didn't meet him, probably, I would not be as cognizant of the fact. What a great document it is, and what a great story behind the creation of the document. I learned a lot, and the more I learn, the more I respect it.
He's not only is he a teacher, he's also a student, right?
No, we're all
And the
students, I
thing-
think.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
There are a lot of people say, well, I'm not a constitutional scholar. I learn a lot about it.
I'm a constitutional novice.
And then what I know I teach. And I mean, I can't quote you every case law like some people with photographic memories, but I took an oath to defend the Constitution when I was 17 years of age. And that oath stays with me to the day I die. Not just
Your
the 3
service
years-
in the Army,
I was in the
or-
Army. I was in the Army. That didn't end when I got out. That ends when
Well, thank you
when
for
I'm
serving.
dead. Well, thank you. I was honored to do it. Although, going through basic training, I says, what was I thinking?
Yeah, well,
After the
yeah.
first couple of days, I don't know.
Well, it means
But anyway,
a lot. The thing that bothers me about our brave men and women right now is that I don't trust the government at this point, and I feel that our men and women are being used
Oh,
almost
yes,
as
yeah.
tools for the United Nations
Cannon
for all
fodder,
this.
that's right.
And I really don't like that. I'm having trouble with it every single day. And my son, who is a very patriotic young man, said, I won't serve in the military because I'm not going to serve that government.
Right.
And he means he's not going to fight their wars for their, their global
Agenda. Yeah.
And
And-
I thought, that is so sad. But the younger people in our country, Generation X, there's a large number of them that do know the Constitution.
That's right.
And they do know what's going on with Agenda 21 and the United Nations. And they are forming that militia, in a sense, below the surface.
Of an educational informed.
They've had enough of the propaganda, the lies in the media. You know, we've lost our fourth pillar of liberty, and with the media right now, it is
It's
a
really,
mess.
I mean, the media's become an arm of the corporate government, corporate state. They've become an arm.
They've become a communist propaganda machine, is what they've become.
And I think the last 6 months, I think, shows that the just total lack of credibility. Whether you like Trump or not, some of these his wife slapped his hand. Oh my goodness. You know, some
That's
guy.
because he had a clammy hand. She didn't want to hold
Yeah.
on to it.
That means he should be impeached. You know, or some idiot with a Trump hat gets into a fight on a plane.
Right.
Wow, everybody with Trump hats are evil. I mean, that's a non-story.
Right.
Oh
right,
wow,
right.
they're all a bunch of pugged. So, and one of the things that our campaign, we do learn not just about the Constitution, but the threats to the Constitution. So we'll have
Yes.
classes on things like Common Core, Agenda 21. What else do we have? The United Nations. We'll have John McManus.
Oh,
He's
John
one of the top-
McManus,
One of the
wonderful.
top guys. He'll be there giving a couple of classes.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
That's great.
And
He's been on the
so-
show a couple times.
So he'll be talking about a term called the New World Order. What exactly does that mean, and why should teenagers worry about that thing? And so
So how can we get you to come down to southeastern Connecticut and do something?
I'm doing this full time. So I became full time in February, thanks to the general. I mean, I took a leap of faith because it's
I
not
know,
like
you
there
have
was
to- you
there
have
was
to have a
tons of
benefactor.
there wasn't tons
Yeah.
of money in the account ready to go. But we have some folks that are helping. We need more. But we love to. I'd love to come down and give some presentations.
What I want to see is,
We could bring the doc down with us too. And
we had, I was telling you,
seminar.
the rally we had was so diverse, the people were so diverse. The Constitution and liberty itself has no skin color, has no religion,
That's
has
right.
no, and God is so
Liberty,
important.
liberty.
If we strip God out of the Constitution, if we strip God out of our lives, we are controlled, and we are no longer free. And that is what makes the United States so incredible. And I want to teach everybody that. I want to explain why our Constitution is so incredible and our Bill of Rights. And it's separate from the government. It's not the government, the
That's right.
Constitution. But
it's the people that establish the government.
it's the people that
And
establish.
so another class we do is we have classes about our nation's heritage, our godly heritage. And some of the other side will say, oh, they're a bunch of, you listen to Bill Maher, you think they're all a bunch of atheists that just sort of placated the dumb masses. No, that wasn't true. George Washington, it was Benjamin Franklin. Benjamin Franklin was probably not a Trinitarian Christian, but he believed that there was a God, and when at the Constitutional Convention, when they were bickering about things, he called for prayer. And they got on their knees. You see a picture of that.
Oh yeah, I've seen
They
that.
weren't looking for a dropped coin. They were solemn praying. It wasn't just a little thing, let's get it over with.